Hey guys, what's poppin'? So it's been 24 hours since Madonna released her new track Medellin, which featured Maluma. I've had a chance to listen to it and I'm going to give you my thoughts in just a second. Okay, so it's been 24 hours, like I said, since Madonna released her new track. I've had a chance to listen to it, so I'm going to give you my thoughts in a moment. And then I just want to give you some of my kind of thoughts and feelings on the upcoming album, Madam X, as well. So let's get into it. So obviously the track's called Medellin, I think that's how you say it, and it features an artist that I've never heard of called Maluma. So it's quite interesting to kind of go into this not really knowing what to expect. Obviously looking at the track name, it was obviously Spanish, so I had an idea that it might have a Spanish twist to it, or a Latin feel to it. It's obviously a Latin pop song. I'm sure most of you have heard it by now. It premiered on Beats One yesterday in the UK, and obviously I've had a chance, like I said, to listen to it on a number of occasions over the last 24 hours. Now, going into this, I just want to kind of make a disclaimer that I do like Madonna. I think she's a really strong female. She's got a real strong body of work. So I was quite surprised listening to this track. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not feeling this one at all. I didn't like the production. I don't like the direction that it's gone. The song sounds itty. I don't know if that's the right word to explain it. It sounds like it's all over the place. And when I listen to some of Maluma's tracks or some of his own work, it's very in keeping with that style of music, so I can see how he's influenced the track, but for Madonna, I just don't think this really fits for her. I don't like I said, the production. I don't like that I can't understand half the song, and that's probably my ignorance as well. Obviously I don't speak Spanish, so, and half of the track is him rapping or singing in Spanish, so again I have no idea what's being sang. Now, for me, if this was someone like J-Lo, Shakira, even Selena Gomez, I think it would fit better. I think it's because it's coming from Madonna, and if I'm being honest, I don't see the authenticity in the music. I think the thing with Latin, Spanish music is it really has the culture. You could hear and feel the culture when you listen to that style of music. So, listen to, J-Lo Spanish music, Shakira, all those girls and guys, Ozuna as well, who sing and rap in Spanish. You can really feel and hear the culture in that music, because they're from that background. Whereas with Madonna, and this is no shade obviously, but with her, she's not from that background, so it almost sounds disingenuous listening to her sing that style of music. Now I know she lives in Spain, and obviously she's probably been influenced by the music and the culture and how everything is over there, and there's no reason why she can't have that influenced in her music. She's done it before with La Bonita, I think that's how you say it. She also had Spanish lesson as well, off the Hard Candy album. So she has had tracks before that have been influenced by Spanish or Latin sounding music. So there was no reason why she couldn't really do that here. I just feel that she's probably gone a little bit too far in that lane, in the Spanish lane, for my taste. And all this is obviously my taste. I get everybody's different, and I'll move on in a moment to the public's kind of perception and reception on social media in a second. But for me, I just felt that as the first single from her new album, she hasn't released anything since 2015. I think I would have wanted something a little bit more commercial, something a little bit stronger, and just something a little bit that stands for Madonna, the queen of pop, because that's what she has been referred to many times. So I think hearing a strong pop anthem or a pop song would have really helped solidify her back into pop culture and back into the music industry. I just don't feel at the minute that that's been achieved with this song. it might be a grower, it might be something that I listen to over the next few weeks, and I really get into it, but just my first impressions, I just wasn't feeling it at all. That being said, on social media, so as I was listening to the track on Beats One, I was obviously looking at Twitter and Instagram and just looking at some of the reactions to the track, mostly positive, if I'm being honest. A lot of people were really glad that she's again reinvented herself. Madonna's been known for that, and I'll get into that in a bit more later in the video, but a lot of people are glad that she's really reinvented herself. She's trying something new, it sounds different, and I get that. I really do. I just feel that at the minute, she really needed something to be a bit more mainstream. I think she's tried to do something very different, and I'm just a bit worried that it may not catch on, with the GP. So we'll definitely see. I've got no doubt that her stans will ultimately love this. It's just something that I'm a bit concerned about, especially with her dwindling career. One thing I did like about the track, and it wasn't all negative, is vocally she sounded really good. I've been to see Madonna live 3 times, and I'm going to be honest, and I think it's probably known now that as a live singer, she probably isn't the best, but she does put on a great performance, so that compensates for that seeing her live. So I know that the track that has just released, and all of her studio music certainly has been tuned and fine-tuned, but I think she sounded good on the track. You've got to remember that this lady's in her 50s, 60s, so she sounds great. That's one thing I would definitely give. I think it would have been good to release the video at the same time as the track. Sometimes, and I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but sometimes you'll hear a track and then you'll see the video and really like it, and vice versa. Sometimes you'll see the video and think, and then you'll listen to the track on its own and it lands and resonates really well. So I think that could have really helped really push this narrative of this Latin pop sound and feel, especially as it's coming up to summer. It would have been a perfect opportunity to drop the video as well. And I think Madonna really sticks to an old school rollout when it comes to her albums. She'll typically release 3 or 4 tracks. They'll be spaced probably 2 or 3 months apart, and then she'll dip out. And that's fine. But I think, she probably needs to switch that up. It's 2019, and if she really wants to get back into, the mainstream pop and mainstream media, she really needs to think about her album rollouts, her message, and this is something that I'm going to touch on a bit later on in the video as well, with my thoughts on the kind of upcoming album. So just moving on to kind of Madonna's recent work. Like I said, I really like Madonna. There's nothing against her. I think she's really, she's been a real trailblazer. And I think someone that I was listening to recently, it was actually on Beats One when they introduced the track, they said that, she'd really broken down and punched through some walls, and she may have tripped and fallen over, but that hole that she's left has left other girls or other females in the industry come through and do their own work as well. And I'm not going to get into the comparisons with Madonna and other artists, but it's very clear there are certain artists who are heavily influenced by Madonna and the work she's done, or they've been able to achieve what they have based on the fact that Madonna's kind of been and done it. She's come through and she's helped pave the way for these girls, so she should really be proud of the fact that she's done that, and she will continue to do that. I've got no doubt about that. I've always liked the odd song by Madonna growing up in the 80s. I noticed songs like Human Nature, Frozen, Dress You Up. They've always been just like real poppy tracks that I really liked. But I've never really got into Madonna. It wasn't really until she released Confessions on a Dance Floor that I really started to get into her work. It probably helped that album was a little bit more commercial. It was more radio friendly, and it was pure pop. So it was a real easy album to kind of get into. Obviously since then I've really followed her work, so I've looked at all of her albums that have come out since, Hard Candy, MDNA, Rebel Heart, etc. But then I've also gone back and looked at some of her other songs, so songs like Vogue, Deeper and Deeper, Erotica, Those are the songs that really stand out to me. Things like Take a Bow, which I know the Madonna stans really like these songs, but for me, just for someone who never really grew up listening to Madonna, I went back and listened to some of her older stuff, and I really like it. You know, I can see why she has got to where she's got to with the body of work she has, because a lot of the songs that she has produced or released or sang have really kind of set the scene for that era and that decade, and again, like I said, it's influenced a lot of different artists to come through and do similar types of music, or really pave their own way in the industry. So with the Confessions album, obviously that was released in 2005, and what I've noticed probably since this time is Madonna's sales have really declined as you go through each album, and I'll take you through that in a second. But this is my concern for the Madame X album. You know, what you'll notice here is she started off as a platinum artist back in the Confessions days, but slowly she's dwindled in terms of her certification. And I think if she's looking to get back to that platinum status album, she really needs to make this album land well. And this is why I was concerned about listening to the track yesterday, that I don't know if it's going to have the impact that she wants overall for this era, but again, we'll see. So the Confessions album obviously was influenced more by the 70s and 80s disco music, as well as modern pop, and that was obviously reflected in the opening or the first single off the track, Hung Up, which obviously sampled ABBA. This was a really big song for her. You know, the whole album itself and the whole era really embodied that disco feel from the music, the videos, you know, the artistry of it all. I just loved the whole homage to the 70s and 80s. The album itself went 4 times platinum in the UK, and it also went platinum in the US as well. And typically for a pop artist, you know, to crack the US and go platinum is quite rare when you think about it, especially for someone like Madonna. So I think the fact this album, you know, went platinum in the US is a big deal. So she should really be proud of that. Me personally, the tracks that I liked off this album were Hung Up. I really like that. I love Sorry, which was, I think, might have been the second or third release. I like Get Together and Push as well. So those 4 were the kind of tracks that stood out for me off the album. In 2008, she then released Hard Candy. I was quite excited for this album because I obviously love R&B and I love hip hop and things like that. So when I heard she was working with Timbaland and Justin Timberlake and the Neptunes, I was really excited for this album. And when it landed, it was good. I think it was definitely of the time, but it also reflected more so the producers than I think it did Madonna. The tour for this album was absolutely amazing, by the way. This was the first tour that I went to of Madonna's, and just the whole set, the performance was absolutely amazing. The album itself again went platinum in the UK, but it only achieved gold in the US, which again surprises me because the producers and writers that I've just mentioned are all from the US. I think what at this time you were finding happening was, you know, R&B was really taking off in America, and whilst this Hard Candy album was labelled quote unquote R&B, it was still quite poppy, and I think that hindered Madonna in some respects, but also, like I mentioned before, you know, when an artist takes a very left turn to what is expected of them, sometimes it comes across as quite disingenuous in terms of the era, the performance, the message that the artist is giving throughout that era. So that could also be a reason why you know, the album didn't perform as well as it could have. Again, for me, the tracks that I really liked off this album, The Beat Goes On, which featured Pharrell, Devil Wouldn't Recognize You. I think there was a bonus track called Ring My Bell. I think it was a bonus track, or it might have been a Japanese track, but I really liked that as well. There was a track called Across the Sky, which featured Justin Timberlake, and the track called Miles Away, which I think got a release. I'm not sure actually, but I really liked that. Miles Away probably was the most poppy, radio friendly track off the album from what I remember. So I really liked that from Madonna, and I think maybe leaning a little bit more into that would have helped with some of the album sales and the delivery as well, but that's by the by. In 2012 she released MDNA. This album achieved gold in the UK and in the US. So as you can see, she's now lost that platinum status at this point. This album was more of a poppy dancey album. So she kind of went back to her normal style of music, but it leans a little bit more into the club scene. So she worked with producers like Ben Benassi, Free School, William Orbit. So there was a lot of dancey producers on the album. For me, the only real track I liked off this album, and this is actually probably one of my favourite Madonna tracks ever, is Girl Gone Wild. I love the video, I love the message, I love the song. Every time I hear this song, it just reminds me of, getting ready to go out. It's a real feel-good song. So I really like that. Everything else off the album, it was okay. I didn't like the collaborations with Nicki Minaj. Again, I just didn't like a lot of the tracks off this album, if I'm honest. I didn't like it. In 2015, so 3 years later, she released Rebel Heart. This for me was probably Madonna's most worst rollout that I've seen. It's probably one of the worst rollouts I've seen of an album, period. There's a few reasons for that. So first of all, it only achieved silver in the UK from a certification point of view, and it didn't achieve anything in the US. So you can see at this point she has really dropped from that platinum. She was 4 times platinum back in the Confessions back in 2005. Fast forward 10 years, and obviously she's down to silver. So, and this, I think part of this was because there were so many leaks from the album. Demos were leaking, and I think ultimately this forced Madonna and her team to release the album, because so much of it was leaking online, and some of the stuff that we heard were actual demos. So when the actual album came out, there were slightly tweaked versions, but it was pretty much the final version. So I think that didn't help with it. The album, from what I'm aware of, was in production for about 2 years. There was a long list of producers that are listed and credited on the album, which also didn't help. And I think the album itself wasn't cohesive. So you had some kind of trap style hip hop music, then it went to pop. The album was just all over the place, and I think that's also reflected in the number of editions. So I didn't realise when I was actually researching for this video, there's probably about 8 editions of this album. When you look at the Japanese and the extended and the Japanese extended, there's so many different versions of this album, and again, there's so many different tracks that leaked and demos that weren't finished. It just was such a messy rollout, and I think that was probably the general consensus from a lot of the people that I spoke to about the album, is that it wasn't cohesive at all. I think Madonna is very, very good for putting out a project, putting out an era and a cohesive project. When you look back at Confessions, Hard Candy, even MDNA, they all had a theme, they all had a feel to the album, whereas Rebel Heart, it just didn't have that. Again, what I will say is the tour for Rebel Heart was amazing. I think she clawed a lot of it back from that. And I think Madonna does really, really well when it comes to her tours. She's probably one of the most successful when it comes to touring, and that's where she clearly makes a lot of her money. So whether or not she has kind of stepped back a bit from the album rollout and it's all about the tour, I'm not sure. But with the actual Rebel Heart tour, again, it was amazing, a real performance. In terms of tracks, the 2 standouts for this album for me were Living for Love. I thought this was a really, really good first single, and it really got me pumped for the album. I think because if I hadn't heard the leaked demos and the leaked tracks before, and I just heard Living for Love, I would have been really, really excited for this album. And I kind of wanted that feeling again when I heard the new track yesterday. Really getting me excited for Madam X, and like I said, I just didn't get that. But Living for Love for me was really, really good. I think the only thing that really, when I listen to Living for Love, it makes me think of the unfortunate incident when Madonna was pulled off stage by the Cape, or Cape Gate as we call it. But other than that, I thought the actual track itself was great. It was a great pop song. It's something that was really ear-catching, especially for the time. You kind of sat and you thought, oh, Madonna's back kind of thing. And that's really what you want from a first single. So I really liked that. I also really, really liked Holy Water. Now, I didn't like this song until I went to the tour. When I went to the tour and I saw the performance for this song, I went back and listened to it after, and I really, really liked it. I really liked the studio tour version, which was mixed with Vogue. I thought those two tracks blended together really, really well. So again, that was a real standout for the album for me as well. And then we move on to Madam X. So we've seen two not leaked, they released the album art. So there's the deluxe edition and the standard. Personally, I prefer the deluxe edition. I think the original album art looks a little bit cheesy, but again, we'll see what the album delivers, because I'm still not sure of the concept of the album or the era. So it might make more sense when I hear the tracks and hear the album. I think that just looking at the album art and everything else, it's given me American Life, that type of album. It's very symbolic. There's going to be a real message behind the album. That's just what I'm getting from the album art. But then again, when I listen to the first track, so Medellin, I'm not getting that at all. It's giving me Latin pop. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see where this album goes, and kind of what feel I'm getting from the album. But I'm curious to see what it brings in June. I think it's the 10th of June it comes out. So I'll be really curious to see how that sounds. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. Looking at the producers, we've got Diplo, which I was quite surprised at. A producer called Maris, I think that's how you say it, Mirwais. Never heard of him before. I assume it's a he. But when I've looked at his discography, he worked a lot on Madonna's music album and also on American Life, which again, like I said, I'm getting those types of feels from this album cover. So it'll be interesting to see, if she's brought him back for that same reason. Mike Dean is also credited as a producer, which is a little bit of a concern for me. He co-produced a lot of the tracks on Rebel Heart, which we know how that went. Mike Dean is more of a hip-hop producer, so I assume he'll produce the track Future, which features Quavo. Again, not surprised that Quavo is featured on the album, considering that Madonna featured on his album with Champagne Rosé. So I'm just waiting to see what the album brings. Like I said, I'll wait till June to kind of reserve my final judgment. But just based on the first single, I'm a bit nervous. The bitch has got me nervous. That's what I will say. She needs to really make sure the album lands well. It has a really good rollout, a really good delivery. She's clearly tightened up on a lot of her security when it comes to the album. I've not seen anything that's leaked or nothing to do with the concept. That's a really good sign. Madonna's always been really, really good for being expressive and expressing herself, hence the name of her track. But I would really, really love this to be a visual album. If Madonna released, because she's always been good for videos, if you look back at most 95% of Madonna's videos have been very expressive, very artistic, so she's really good for delivering her visuals. And that again, it comes to the tour, same thing, her visuals really, really stand out. She can really put on a performance. So I'd really love Madam X to be a visual album. And if it was, I'd hope that, you know, this Medellin track would make a little bit more sense. I just want some clarity around, because at the minute it seems a little bit disjointed. We've got, you know, the album covers don't really match the single. So I just need to see that clarity and see what direction this album's going. And then, like I said, hopefully, you know, it makes a little bit more sense. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I think a visual album from Madonna would be amazing. It's very on trend. You know, a lot of people are now doing that, and you know, we know Madonna's the queen when it comes to visuals. So I think she could rival Beyonce when it comes to a visual album. I think if anyone could really get to that level, where she could release a visual album, because I get that Madonna and Beyonce are very different artists and they've both got star power in different ways, but from a visual album point of view, there aren't many artists that could stand up when it comes to Beyonce, and I think Madonna could do that if she planned it well, released it well, good rollout, good message. I think she could do that. So I think that'd be really, really interesting. I really wanted, and I still want, a dance album from Madonna, a proper dance album. And you know, you could say that MDNA was that, but that was still quite poppy in my opinion. Whereas I really, really want, you know, a real good, you know, dance album from Madonna. And it doesn't have to be with commercial producers, so you instantly think of people like David Guetta, Calvin Harris, Diplo. It doesn't have to be with producers like that. It could be with you know, lesser known producers, which, you know, Madonna tends to work with sometimes. But I'd really want like a real club dance house album from Madonna. I think given you know, her singing ability, and again, it's no shade, but given how she sings, I just think it would lend itself really well to her voice. You could overlay vocal effects and everything else. So I'll still hold out hopes for that style of album. It's obviously not going to be Madam X now, based on the first single and the album art. I'd be very, very surprised if this is a dance album. But I think after this, I would really want her to kind of sunset her career with a full dance album. I think that would be a real kind of way to end on a high, but we'll see. So yeah, we'll wait till June and we'll see how this goes. So thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and also hit the subscribe button to be notified of when I upload next. I'm going to be uploading more content. I'm aware that I've been away for a while, so I've been busy with different projects, but I'm back now, going to be releasing more regular content. So hit the subscribe button and be notified, and I'll speak to you next time, guys. Bye.
I know that everybody's